I always thought betrayal would come with warning signs. That I'd feel something shift. That a gut instinct would scream at me, telling me to run. But the truth is, when betrayal comes from someone you love, it arrives wearing a familiar smile. My name is Olivia. I'm 25, and not too long ago, I had what most people would call a perfect life, or so I believed. A loving husband, a beautiful home, a family we were building together. His name was Nathan. He was 27, sharp-witted, successful, and the kind of man who turned heads in every room, but only ever looked at me. We grew up together in a rough neighborhood on the edge of the city. My parents had fallen on hard times, lost their jobs, couldn't keep up with the bills, so we moved into a lower-income block. That's where I met Nathan. His life wasn't exactly sunshine either. His mother, Eleanor, was always in and out, chasing money, chasing men, chasing something we never quite understood. His father? Never existed in the picture. Nathan was left to be raised by his grandparents, who barely had the energy to keep up with him, let alone raise a child. And yet, despite it all, Nathan thrived. He was brilliant, confident, kind. He helped me and my younger sister with schoolwork while I helped him with chores around the neighborhood. That bond, it grew. From friendship into something more. By the time I was 17, I knew I loved him. He left for college, a scholarship kid who made it out. We tried to stay in touch. FaceTime, messages. But slowly, the calls became less frequent. Then, one day, silence. Just a text that said, "I think it's better we stop." That was it. Years of history ended in one message. I was heartbroken, but I got back up. I pushed myself through school, helped my parents stabilize, and eventually, we moved to a better place. I thought that chapter was closed. Until, 3 years later, he walked back into my life as a guest speaker at a university event I was moderating. The moment our eyes met again, the past came flooding back. He'd made something of himself, a rising entrepreneur with a shiny new company and more confidence than ever. He told me how his mother had married a wealthy businessman who adopted Nathan, funded his startup, and gave him everything Eleanor never did. He was doing well, too well. He offered me a job at his firm. At first, I refused, too complicated, too personal. But he was persistent, and I missed him. So I said yes. 6 months later, I was back in love with the man I once thought I'd never see again. One late night at the office, he got down on one knee and proposed. No dating, no waiting, just raw honesty. "I messed up once," he said. "I won't lose you again." I said yes. But the fairy tale stopped there. From the very beginning, his mother, Eleanor, made it clear I wasn't good enough for her son. She played sweet in front of Nathan, but when he wasn't looking, the venom came out. She called my family gold diggers, said we were trash from the block. I held my tongue for as long as I could, until one day, I reminded her that at least we worked for everything we had. Unlike her, who married into money and wore it like a badge of honor. Nathan didn't want to hear it. Every time I brought up his mother's behavior, he told me to just ignore her, that it wasn't worth the drama. But the more I bit my tongue, the more poisoned he became. Eleanor had her hooks in him, whispering in his ear, twisting the truth, reminding him I came from nothing. Still, we pushed forward. We eloped. Quietly. Without her. She was furious, of course, but pretended to be happy. At the reception, she even gave a toast. But behind her smile, I saw it, the hatred, the threat. Time passed, and we tried to build a life. Bought a house. Talked about kids. One day, my sister called and asked for a small loan to help with her startup. I told Nathan about it, and he surprised me by offering to cover the whole thing. "We're family now," he said. "No need to split hairs over money." I thought it was love. I didn't realize it was bait. When the startup struggled, Nathan changed. He grew cold, distant, arguments over nothing, silence at dinner. And then he forgot our first anniversary. That's when I left for a few days, stayed with my parents. To clear my head. To think. We had a small family gathering planned for the following weekend, something Nathan and I organized together before things got rocky. I didn't want to cancel, so I returned home. He barely acknowledged me. And then, the night before the gathering, I got a call from Eleanor. She told me, in the coldest voice possible, to pack my bags. "I found someone better for Nathan," she said. "A woman with class." I hung up. The next morning, guests arrived. Laughter filled the house. Music played. And then, Nathan walked in front of everyone, handed me an envelope, and said, "I can't do this anymore." Inside, divorce papers and photos. doctored photos of me with another man, in compromising positions I had never seen in my life. My hands trembled. My stomach dropped. I looked at Nathan and begged, "You don't believe this, do you?" He looked me in the eye and said, "I should have listened to my mother." And just like that, the man I loved, the life we built, the dreams we shared, all of it shattered in front of my family and friends. He told me to leave, that I was a liar, a manipulator, a thief. I left the party with my sister, tears streaking my face, my heart in pieces, and my name dragged through the dirt. But something didn't sit right. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was war. And Eleanor had declared it. After that humiliation, I disappeared. No social media. No calls. No texts. I stayed with my sister in a tiny two-bedroom apartment above her workspace. For days, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. My name had been dragged through the mud by the man who once swore to protect me. And worst of all, I had no idea why. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was in shock, frozen in place. But my sister, Emma, she wasn't frozen. She was furious. She was the one who started digging. Because she knew me, knew I'd never betray Nathan. And more than that, she smelled the setup. A week later, she called me into the living room with fire in her eyes and said, "You need to see this." She'd done a reverse image search on one of the fake photos Nathan gave me, the one that supposedly showed me at a hotel, kissing another man. And there it was, the original image. Same background. Same man. Different woman. A random photo pulled from a modeling website in Photoshop to replace her face with mine. My hands shook as I stared at it. It was so crudely done. I wondered how Nathan ever believed it. Unless he didn't. Unless it wasn't just his mother. Unless he was in on it. But why? Emma kept digging. She traced the IP address that sent Nathan the anonymous evidence. It came from Eleanor's second phone. The same phone she used to coordinate vendors for the wedding. And get this, the domain used to create the fake email account? It was registered under a shell company Eleanor once used to evade taxes. It was a full-blown operation. I wanted to confront Nathan. I wanted to march into his fancy condo and scream until my voice broke. But then something else happened. I missed a period. I thought it was the stress, the anxiety, the way I'd barely eaten for days. But the test didn't lie. I was pregnant. Pregnant with the child of a man who had just humiliated me in front of everyone I loved. A man who believed a bunch of grainy, faked photos over me. A man whose mother thought she could replace me like a broken piece of jewelry. I broke down that night. I curled up on Emma's couch and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. What do I do? I whispered. How do I raise a child in this mess? Emma sat beside me, took my hand, and said, "You survive. And then you fight." So I got up. I went to a lawyer, explained everything, showed him the fake photos, the metadata, the emails. He was horrified, said I had more than enough to sue Eleanor for defamation, emotional distress, and potentially fraud, especially if Nathan had knowledge of the setup. But here's the kicker. While I was building my case, Eleanor and Nathan announced his engagement to a woman named Chelsea. Rich, polished, empty. I recognized her immediately. She was the daughter of one of Eleanor's bridge club friends. Blonde, conservative, dressed like a trophy. Someone who could play the part. The engagement was sudden. No love story. No history. Just strategy. They posted a photo on Instagram with the caption, "Sometimes the right one comes along when you least expect it." I nearly threw my phone. But it wasn't rage that pushed me into action. It was clarity. This wasn't about love. Or even betrayal. This was about control. Eleanor never cared about Nathan's happiness. She cared about his wealth. And more importantly, keeping it in her bloodline. And I was the outsider. The threat. She wanted me gone before she could no longer touch his assets. And she almost succeeded. Until the wrong person saw the wrong message. You'd think fake photos and public humiliation would be the worst someone could do to you. But I learned something far more terrifying. When people can't control you, they try to destroy you. And sometimes, that destruction isn't metaphorical. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Emma forwarded me the email. She'd hacked into Eleanor's old cloud storage, which apparently she hadn't wiped. We were looking for more proof of the fake photos. But instead, we found a thread titled, "Options." I opened it. There were 3 emails. The first was a message from Eleanor to a contact named MW, asking about clean methods, no loose ends, no trail. It read like something out of a movie, except it was real. She described me, where I lived, where I worked, my routine. The second email was a price quote. Yes, a price. For me. The third was the most chilling. It was from Nathan. I'll cover the cost. Just make sure it doesn't come back to me. My blood went cold. I reread it 10 times, praying I was misunderstanding something. That this was some elaborate, cruel metaphor. That there was another me they were talking about. But there wasn't. It was my name, my life, my schedule, and his voice saying he'd pay for it to disappear. I couldn't breathe. My legs gave out. Emma had to slap me across the face to bring me back. This wasn't just betrayal. This was attempted murder. The lawyer took one look at the emails and told us we needed to go to the police immediately. We did. And thank God, they took it seriously. An investigation was launched. Quietly. They tracked the payments. They tracked the contacts. Turns out, MW wasn't some shadowy hitman. He was a private investigator with a criminal past who was more than willing to talk when faced with jail time. And what he told them? Chilling. Eleanor had initially hired him to dig up real dirt on me. When he came back with nothing, she asked him to fabricate. And when that didn't convince Nathan fast enough, she asked if he knew people who could make problems disappear. He didn't. But he knew how to fake it. He created the illusion of a threat, hoping to scare me into vanishing. What he didn't count on was me fighting back. The authorities moved quickly. With everything we'd gathered, they arrested Eleanor for conspiracy and attempted fraud. Nathan was brought in for questioning, and that's when his carefully constructed ego cracked. He broke. Said he didn't know she would take it so far. That he just wanted a clean exit. That he thought faking infidelity would be enough. But when he realized it wasn't, when I didn't crumble and disappear the way they expected, he panicked. He signed the payment. He chose to escalate. And now? He would pay for that. The trial began 6 months later. By then, I was visibly pregnant, my belly a reminder of everything I'd lost and everything I still had to protect. The courtroom was packed. Reporters hovered outside. And Eleanor? She walked in like royalty, dressed in designer, sunglasses on, like this was just another one of her luncheons. Nathan, on the other hand, looked like a ghost. Pale. Sweating. Avoiding my eyes. I took the stand and told them everything, the photos, the fake affair, the email thread, the PI, the plan to make me disappear. I brought the receipts, the metadata, the text messages, the voice memos Emma secretly recorded during a confrontation with Eleanor in a cafe. The jury didn't take long. Eleanor was convicted of conspiracy to commit fraud, defamation, attempted coercion, and obstruction of justice. 5 years. No parole. Nathan was a harder case. His lawyer claimed he was duped by his manipulative mother, that he signed the wire transfers under pressure, that he didn't mean harm. But the email where he said, "Just make sure it doesn't come back to me," that sealed his fate. He was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison, with an additional 3 years of probation and a lifetime stain on his business credentials. He'd never run another company, never sit on a board, never rebuild the empire he and Eleanor cared about more than human life. He cried when the sentence was read. But I didn't. I sat still, calm, holding my swollen stomach, because I wasn't crying anymore. I was done bleeding for people who never deserved my love. After the trial, Nathan tried to reach out, wrote letters from prison, claimed he wanted to be part of the baby's life, said he made mistakes, that he was under her spell. But you don't order someone's disappearance because you're confused. You don't try to bury the mother of your child just to make room for another woman. You don't come back from that. So I never responded. Instead, I built a new life. Quiet, peaceful, strong. Emma stayed by my side every step of the way. She was in the delivery room when I gave birth to my daughter, Lily Grace. A name that had no ties to pain, no echoes of betrayal. Just light. My daughter will grow up knowing she was wanted. That she was born from courage, not chaos. And as for Nathan, one day she'll ask who her father is. And I'll tell her the truth. Not out of bitterness, but because the truth is the one thing no one could fake. They wanted to erase me, replace me, destroy me. But I survived. I held on to who I was, even when the world tried to shred it apart. And now, I don't just carry scars. I carry strength. And a new life that will never, ever be touched by their poison.